السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay. Okay, Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to all of you to our monthly Alhamdulillah Family and Faith Live. And inshallah today we are going to be discussing in particular in-law issues, how to live happily with in-laws. Of course, in this live Q&A, you can ask all questions related to family and faith, but in particular, if you are having in-law struggles, then this is the session to inshallah address those issues. Now, we have already got, Muftisab, alhamdulillah, a number of questions come in via our Google form. Of course, those who are joining us live can ask via the comments on YouTube, or also the chat, the comment section on the Instagram live as well. But we already have a number of questions coming, so I will just jump straight into those questions. So the first question that I'd like to start off with, the questioner asked the following. So she says, if the in-laws are waiting every morning for the daughter-in-law to make their breakfast, what should the daughter-in-law do? Sometimes she wants to rest. Sometimes she wants to rest, but can't tell her parents-in-law. So let me just invite Muftisab again for the... Okay, alhamdulillah. So Muftisab, I'm just gonna repeat that question. If the in-laws are waiting every morning for the daughter-in-law to make their breakfast, what should the daughter-in-law do? Sometimes she wants to rest, but can't tell her parents-in-law. So what should she do in that kind of situation?
So, I mean, obviously, there's a few ways you can obviously tackle this. One way is to try your best to explain to your husband nicely, to maybe gently mention it to his parents, and perhaps hopefully he can mention it in a way whereby it doesn't become misunderstood. Because obviously sometimes these kind of things can be very much misunderstood, and it's the starting point of creating a lot of animosity and hostility that then the daughter-in-law will face. So she's going to have to judge that is it wise for me to discuss with my husband and therefore try to get some inroad that way. If she feels as though no, probably this is not the case, or maybe she discusses it with her husband and her husband tells her as well, advises her that, look, if I bring it up, then maybe they'll probably get the wrong end of the stick and cause you more problems than any good. Then the other way to do this is to try and create a good relationship between her and the mother-in-law. Yeah, okay, and this is something we've mentioned many times, how to create a good relationship with the mother-in-law. Sometimes sit with her, have a little tea with her at nighttime, just have a little talk with her. And then certain times when you're obviously sitting with her, like more or less every few days, and you're talking to her, building good relationship with her, certain times you can bring it up that, look, I'm very tired. I don't know if I'll be able to wake up tomorrow for breakfast. Is it okay if I sleep in tomorrow? Just casually just mention something like that. And because you've got a good relationship with her, she'll say, yeah, that's fine, don't worry. It's fine, don't worry about you sleeping today. Right? So when she says like that, what happens is she kind of slowly gets used to it, that it's okay when she doesn't come. And then slowly, this will become a bit more normal. So that's something that she can try to do. If all fails, then the only thing you can actually try to do is change your perspective. Because remember, you can't change. You try to change through your husband. You try to change through having a relationship with the mother-in-law. You can't do anything there. You've tried everything. The last thing left is now to try to change yourself, right? So you find yourself in this situation whereby obviously the mother-in-law is, or the in-laws aren't really budging on this one, and it's not too big a deal, I would say, whereby just twist it into something positive now. Okay, you know what, I'm having breakfast with them, because the point is you can't change that, right? If you can't change that, and you're saying that there's no way for me, I've tried everything, I can't change it, then there's only two things you can do. Either you complain all the time about it and think negatively about it, right? And it will take a toll on your relationship with them, because obviously naturally certain things you're going to do to towards them, or say, or you're going to frown or something, they're going to take notice of that, and it's going to cause you problems. Or the other choice is either you complain about it, the other choice is you don't complain about it anymore. So how are you not going to complain about it anymore? You start thinking of it as a positive thing. So you change your perspective of how you consider this. This is like, okay, actually, you know what? It's not a bad thing. I'm going to have breakfast anyway. So I'm just having breakfast with them, maybe a bit earlier than I would have liked, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. Why? Because this will give me more, it'll give me a bonding time with them. It'll connect me with them. Then sometimes, certain things that I need doing in life, hopefully they can help me with, like with children in the future. Or in fact, sometimes with my husband, certain times when he doesn't listen to something, then, I can bring it up with my mother-in-law, because I have a good relationship with her, and she'll get through to her son, and I'm sure those who are married will know that many a times you're not able to get through to your husband in that way, but your mother-in-law, meaning her mother, can get through to him straight away, and he'll straight away do it as soon as his mother tells him do that, right, and get it done. So she's like your ally, right? And this is your building your bond with your ally in essence. Does that make sense? So these are things that you can try to do stage by stage. Hopefully this will give you a solution.
Jazakallah khair, Muftasab. And I think obviously what I would add is, she has said that sometimes she wants to rest. So obviously the reason you want to wake up later is because you want to rest. So if you know that's an issue, that in the morning I'm feeling tired, then try your best to get early nights. Because if you're getting early nights, you're sleeping early, then when you wake up, inshallah, you won't have that same need. You've got your good 6, 7, 8 hours. You'll be comfortable and you'll be okay. So it may just be a case of trying to adjust your daily timetable practically as well, whereby you can get an early night. And if it's your husband keeping you awake, then explain to him that, look, I've got to wake up. I know you want to keep me awake, but I need to wake up early. You can sleep in, but I've got to get up. And I'm sure your husband will understand, because you're cooking for his parents, right? So, and when you explain to your husband, often knowing all the things you're doing for his parents, he will generally be quite understanding, inshallah. Okay, brilliant. The next question is as follows. So the sister asks, sometimes my mother-in-law and father-in-law order me to do bid'ahs. Now, then she gives an example, right? Obviously, we're not necessarily agreeing with her example, but she says, celebrating birthdays and taking pictures and sending those pictures to family members, including non-mahrams. Now, I don't know if we would call that a bid'ah, but nevertheless, that's the example she's given. What can I do with this, and how to avoid these kinds of activities? So what can I do with this, and how to avoid these kinds of activities?
I mean, a lot of the things are going to boil down to having a good relationship with your in-laws. Obviously, when you have a good relationship with the in-laws, there can be a better understanding. There can be more accommodation from their side as well. They're more likely to take on board what you're saying, and more likely to cut you some slack sometimes, right? And understand you better, really. So if they know that, no, she's actually quite strict about pictures, she doesn't like pictures, or, she doesn't like doing this particular thing, she doesn't agree with it, then they will respect those boundaries. So you have to kind of, state your boundaries as such, but it has to come from a good place. You have to have a good relationship with them as well. Otherwise, obviously, if you go in there, these are my boundaries, I don't do these things, and you kind of abruptly mention things, then it will create more problems for you. So yeah, obviously you have to just mention the boundaries, and inshallah, hopefully, they will take on board, they will understand. It might take a bit of time for them to get used to it. Remember, whenever somebody has had a different mindset to you, right? For them, pictures have been nothing, you know, it's all okay. Certain things that they may do, it's been okay for them to do for a very long time. Maybe obviously they're older than you, they've been spending a lot of time doing these kind of things. It's abnormal when you come into that and you're telling them that, hold on a minute, I don't really agree with that. So for them to get used to that idea might take a bit of time. So you might have to mention it a few times here and there, and inshallah, hopefully without making a face, without complaining about it too much, without being naggy about it, just making them understand, then hopefully they will respect your boundaries.
Also, I think, like Mufti Saab kind of alluded to in a previous answer, was that in these kind of situations, your husband is your best friend. So if you don't like that they're sending your pictures, you don't have to say that. You could tell your husband, and your husband can take it on his shoulder. Look, mom, I don't really like it when you send her pictures, right? Because obviously, as a woman, she'll understand that, yeah, my son doesn't like it that I'm sending his wife's pictures to non-mahrams, including men. No man would want that. So if he explains it that, look, I don't really like it, then it won't come on you, and the mother, father are more likely to be understanding. Also, it's very important that if you are going to play the religious card, right, you have to be consistent. It can't come across that you're playing the religious card when it suits you, and then at the same time they're seeing you doing things which are completely anti-religious, against the deen, and they're thinking, so when we want to do things, then you or use the religious card, but then when it comes to what suits you, then you're okay. But if you're being consistent across the board, they can't say anything because they know that, okay, she's consistent, right? But if you're, sometimes playing the religious card, then using it to your advantage when you want to, it's not going to work, right? So I think making sure you have that consistency as well is of course important. Okay, the next question is as follows. All right. So the sister, I don't know if it's anyway. In-laws have a habit of making passive aggressive comments and constantly assume I'm not doing enough, aren't good enough for my husband. How do I deal with this? The former always makes me angry and ruins any social gatherings. I give gifts, compliment, help, host, and participate in everything happily. So that's the question.
I mean, like I've said already, I mean, it does boil down to trying to build a good relationship with them, trying to understand where they're coming from, and making, an effort with them specifically, rather than just in obviously in gatherings, in events, and obviously understanding their love language. So sometimes it may not be that gifts are appreciated because they don't really appreciate gifts. It may be something else, other acts of service or kind words or whatever else. You have to find their love language and try to do those things and make efforts in those things which they will recognize and they will appreciate. So then you will feel much more warmth from them because they will obviously recognize and understand where you're coming from. A lot of things you have to give it a miss. You have to kind of like let it pass, let it be, because you're living together. If you're living together, certain things will obviously, sometimes it's just that they've woken up on the wrong side of the bed. Sometimes they're just not in the mood. So if you don't let them things pass and you kind of make a comment about it, or if you maybe make a expression like of disapproval, now what creates friction? Friction creates, and between this, in this relationship, once that friction creates, that will now carry through to many other things. So even if you've not done anything wrong now, but because of all of the other things you've probably done before, like, that may not be entirely correct from your side as well, because of those things, they're now, acting like catalysts in making this thing blow out of proportion. And even if the smallest, minutest thing you may do, it will be made to look like, oh, you've done something grave, or you missed this out, and they'll always be negative towards you. So you have to kind of, start from scratch with them, in essence. Start again build a good relationship, sit with them, sometimes sit with the mother-in-law, tell that, I'm sorry for everything that's happened. I really want to have a good relationship with you. I want to get on with you very well. So can you can we just start again? I just want to, then, let me take you out, let's go to the market, wherever she likes doing, just take her out, and then build like a little bit of a thing relationship with her. Not too much you have to do, but do something. Right. And like that, slowly, hopefully, what happens is that relationship will change, inshallah. And obviously, use the aid of your, like Mara mentioned, obviously, you use the aid of your husband to try to get certain kind words in there. So sometimes if your husband does something, like, for example, your husband calls your parents, phones them, or your husband gave a gift to your parents, then your husband could say that, oh, she gave me the idea. She was telling me, that, oh, I should do this. So automatically it'll create something then that, oh, your wife's telling you to behave good towards us. So like this, use the aid of your husband to be able to win their heart. And inshallah, hopefully this kind of animosity that's towards yourself will hopefully will go away. If nothing works, if it doesn't work, then maybe you can get somebody to mediate and talk to them. If everything fails, meaning, to try to talk to them, that look, cut some slack, and there needs to be maybe some sort of somebody to mediate and make them understand something, inshallah.
Also, what I would add here is that the husband has a role also because if the mother-in-law or the father-in-law is making the wife, typically mother-in-law, making the wife feel like this, then the husband has to counteract that by himself telling the wife, expressing to her many times over, and showing her as well that, no, you are good enough for me. Because where this often comes from is that, the husband in society, and especially the mother, has this bias that my son is something special and he deserves somebody of his standard, and he didn't get that. And so inside, she's always making these passive aggressive comments, and she makes you feel that, yeah, you're not good enough for him. Right? And so that makes you feel insecure. But if your husband is constantly telling you that, no, you are good enough for me, I love you a lot, right? You do so much for me, there's nobody better for me than you, right? I'm so glad I chose you, etc., etc. And he makes you feel so confident, then these once in a while comments that your mother-in-law might give will not affect you. But if your husband is not giving you confidence, then of course you're going to feel that, you're going to be raw. And then as soon as someone says something, you'll be like, oh, that's actually true. And my husband probably feels that as well. So your husband has a big role to play in making you feel secure. That's quite important. And of course, in terms of, passive aggressive comments, the other thing is that, like, sometimes when we react to comments, then the other person feels like, yeah, this is working actually. But if you just let it pass and just make it feel like nothing was said, eventually the person who says it was going to start to question themselves that, okay, I'm saying this stuff, is it really working? Like, is it even registering? Right? And eventually they'll just give up, because they'll be like, okay, it doesn't seem to affect them. Right? If you think back to, like, even school days, when one kid would, like, take the mick out of another child, if the other child reacted, it'd be like adding fuel to the fire. Yeah, it worked. But if you were a child who just didn't care, it just stopped, because they were like, this is boring, it's not getting anywhere, so sometimes that can work as well. Okay, the next question of Tisab is as follows. It's a bit of a long one, so I'm just going to read it a bit fast. Let me know if you want me to repeat anything, inshallah. So she says, Assalamu alaikum. I want to share something painful that's happening in my family. My mother-in-law often takes things without permission when we visit. She opens and touches everything. I found that she has stolen items from our home. I also discovered something that looked like sihr, black magic, in my house. A small object with blood. And after that, I began to feel unwell. I have been sick since my marriage. She has always been difficult and never gets along with anyone. When my husband was a 3-month-old baby, she gave the child to her own mother to raise instead of caring for the baby herself. She doesn't show fear of Allah and often behaves in a way that shocks me. For example, at her age, she spends time on TikTok arguing loudly about politics. Even her 2 sons seem emotionally distant from her. I don't use Instagram or TikTok. My family and I have prayed and asked Allah to move her away. She did move far, but she still visits us occasionally. She is cruel and I don't know how to respond. If I ignore her, refuse her visits, or speak family, I worry about my duty to show respect to elders. I was raised with Deen, Quran, and good adab, so this situation is deeply painful for me. May Allah help me. Please advise me what to do, and keep it anonymous, which we have anyway. So that's the question.
Okay, inshallah. I mean, obviously, first of all, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easier for you to be able to deal with this kind of situation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve you from this kind of situation. Hopefully gives the mother-in-law some sort of understanding, something changes in her heart to be able to understand this kind of thing, right? Allah ta'ala is muqallib al-qulub. Hopefully Allah ta'ala, through du'as and things, Allah ta'ala makes some sort of change happen. But obviously, realistically, pragmatically, we have to talk. What I'm understanding here is that it's not a regular thing because she's more distant now. She doesn't come so often anymore. So it's not something which is obviously that what hurts probably more is that it's not been a ideal relationship that we would have liked to have. We would have dreamt of a better relationship, but it's not like that. But that is dunya. That is the world. Allah Ta'ala sometimes tests us in the very things that we would have thought that we would have got, and He doesn't give that to us, and sees that, let's see how you react, right? But remember, dunya is temporary, right? And this kind of behavior is also temporary towards yourself, Asi, that it's not something that's going to be regular. So for that reason, you have to kind of that's the test. Understand that that's the test in dunya for me, and I just have to do my duty, which is when they do come, when she does come, I am going to be dutiful to her. I'm going to try my best for her, and that's it really. Beyond that, you don't have to go out your way to go and do more than that. She's coming, you're going to behave amicably towards her, and that's it really. Obviously, take your precautions, which is read your adhkar, read your manzil to make sure none of these kind of things, if there is some sort of sihr things going on, then these things don't affect you, inshallah. So keep up your protections, and if you keep up the Quran recital protection, read Surah Al-Baqarah, read the Mu'awwidhatayn, read the Quls, all of these kind of things, inshallah, daily. Make a practice of this. Sometimes Allah Ta'ala puts us in this kind of a situation for us to become regular with some sort of ibadah, some sort of, recital and things like that. Otherwise, we would not have had those things in our lives. So take it as a positive from that angle. Inshallah, you keep up all those things and these things won't affect you, inshallah, okay? Don't keep thinking about the past, what's happened. What has happened has happened. You can't change that. Just continue living your life. You can't allow people like this to be able to make a hindrance in you progressing in your life the way you want to. So you carry on living your happy life. If somebody comes that you don't really get on with, for one day, for a few hours, you entertain them and they're gone, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in one hadith very famously, there was a person that came to visit Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says to Aisha anha that this person is a very bad person of his people. He's a very bad person. And then, but when he did come, Prophet ﷺ entertained him. He was quite good to him. After he went, Aisha on him and asked that, oh, this person, you said he was a bad person. When he comes, you talk to him very nicely and all of the rest of it. So then, obviously, this is the example that Prophet ﷺ has left us with. That just because somebody is very bad doesn't mean we're going to be bad towards them. Our duty we have to do. We do what we can. And remember, they're only there temporarily. So then we leave them on their way afterwards. Does that make sense? So hopefully, inshallah, this will help. Hopefully this is going to be something.
Jazakallah khairan, Ustad. And I think Mufti Saab did hint towards this, but just to say it explicitly, where you mentioned that I don't know how to respond if I ignore her, refuse her visits, or speak firmly. I worry about my duty to show respect to elders. So of course, in the Deen, we are told to show respect to elders. But if that is affecting your household through black magic, or you're affecting your mental health, things like this, it is not that in our Deen we can't set these kind of boundaries, And also, as we've been hinting in all the other answers, these principles still apply. That getting your husband's help, and remember, if she's on the wrong track, your husband as a son will be feeling some kind of pain, right? Nobody wants to see their parents, especially as they're getting older, and they're getting closer to their death. That's the reality, right? They're getting closer to their death. Nobody wants to see them on the wrong path. So sometimes out of the goodness of our hearts, we can try to have an attitude where you can perhaps become a means of guidance for her, right? Like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his attitude always was that I'm a mercy for people. So think, how would I treat her in a way where perhaps she will see, as the Quran says, that repel evil with good, and perhaps even your enemy will become a close friend. So treat her in a way where she even becomes surprised that subhanallah, I've been constantly, mistreating her, but they are constantly treating me in a good way. What is it? And that may then inshallah become the means of khair and goodness for her, inshallah. And that will be an honor for yourself as well. Okay, next question is as follows. Okay, so she says, I got married 10 days ago. I got married 10 days ago. As a wife, I know I have been rude and arrogant and have anger issues. I have apologized and begged for forgiveness and have asked my husband to please guide me to change. I said I will wake up for tahajjud and ask Allah to rectify me, and I will try my best to change these characteristic issues. My husband wants to send me home and likely divorce. I feel this is a drastic measure, and sending me to my mom's house will create more distance and not help resolve our issues. He has hinted divorce many times too. Please help and advise me. His whole family have been telling him to send me home too, as I was not very nice to his mother, which I admit and have apologized. I'd like to rectify these, but I feel they don't want to give me any chance. Now, I don't know if that is 10 days ago or maybe a bit longer, but seems fair.
Okay, I mean, obviously what's happened in the recent past is obviously creating a lot of unrest with your husband. Is very unhappy. You're going to have to try to do something to try to win his heart, win his happiness, make him understand that you are sincerely sorry for what's happened. And perhaps I would strongly recommend counseling, something to try to mediate between the two of you, to try to get to some sort of plan. Obviously, he's probably thinking that you're not going to change, but if he sees that you're doing something to bring about change, where you're maybe doing counseling, and maybe if need be, doing some sort of therapy to cure the anger issues and things like that, then hopefully the husband will understand that actually there's some change happening here. Let me give it a go. Let me give it a chance. This has got a chance. So there has to be some active change that that he can see that is happening. And if that's the case, then hopefully he will change. But like I said, it'll be an idea to have some sort of counseling whereby somebody can also talk to him to allow him to understand that this is probably a drastic measure. And then he gets a chance to also air his feelings. Sometimes he's bottling a lot of things inside, and there may be certain things he's thinking about why he feels as though he wants to go down the route of divorce. So when he gets the chance to air that, to actually say that, and to hear himself say that, sometimes he himself would realize that actually this doesn't warrant a divorce. I'm maybe taking a heavy hand here. And so it's just a matter of sometimes letting it out. So maybe counseling, I would say, would probably hopefully do something here.
Brilliant, Jazakallah khair. So that is that one. The next question is, okay. Okay, so I think the next question seems to be just the same person, but they just added some other details which I don't think are that important. She just added, I have sought forgiveness many times and have said I will do anything to fix this. However, he has become very cold. He has been intimate throughout and said, I don't want to just use you and then throw you away. But I've spoken about divorce and how Allah will find me another route. Please help me. I feel so alone and scared. So I think there's nothing additional there. That's fine. Okay. Next one. How to best resolve family conflict without the spouse feeling you are always taking the family side, or vice versa, family feeling always that you are taking the spouse's side.
Okay, I think with this one, it's important to make everybody understand that we're all on the same team. It's not sides. Okay, there's a different perspective that you may have, but ultimately we have to do what's best for, if it's a matter between the couple, then it's ultimately something which is best for the couple. Obviously, if it's something that affects the family too, they are involved, then it has to be something which is best for the family. The decision that's taken is best for the family, is not because sides are being taken. This person, so you have to say this, you have to air this before you take in a decision. You have to make sure that this is understood by everybody, that the reason we're taking a particular decision is not because we want to be taking this side or that side. It's ultimately the people involved and the people who it affects. It has to be the best decision for them. So saying it really hopefully helps. And if, for example, somebody is grievant about it, one particular person may be grievant about it, then take them aside later on and tell them, we'll talk, we'll have a private chat afterwards. So rather than them corrupting everybody else's thoughts and influencing everybody else in the gathering, because everybody else won't be thinking that, hopefully, but it's generally one person that feels aggrieved like that, oh, you always take this person's side. And then because they said it now in front of everybody, then others start thinking, yeah, actually, that's true. So they've kind of, influenced others to think that. So when you know that this is the case, then sometimes going to that person specifically, and maybe sometimes even giving them examples of, look, last time we did this, last time we did that, look, I went against that person. It wasn't always. So then what happens is, hopefully you kind of mitigated them saying that in a mediation where you're trying to, resolve conflict. So you have to kind of like do your groundwork beforehand to prevent something like this erupting in a conflict resolution case.
And I think one thing that I would also add is that sometimes what kind of leads to this impression also is where when there's a gathering and husband and wife may be there and they're discussing with family, the husband is speaking what the wife should be saying. So what I mean is sometimes the wife just stays silent and the husband just does the speaking on her behalf. And so what happens, everybody's thinking that the husband is just there as a representative for his wife, and where she doesn't want to say something, she just pokes the husband and he does the talking on her behalf. So it gives this very bad impression, right? Whereas what should really happen is, since the wife is now part of the family, she should have that confidence inside of her that where is my point of view, I express that point of view, right? So everybody knows that, okay, she's expressing her point of view. And at the end, when a decision is made, generally try to make decision with mashwara, So if you're taking decision with mashwara, then everybody's involved in that decision making. Right? Then you can't blame, oh, he always goes with his wife. No, everybody's decided together. We've come to this conclusion. So therefore, right or wrong, we all, share in that equally. Okay, the last question we have with this up, and I think we can perhaps wrap it up unless there are any additional after this, is as follows. So she says, my in-laws don't keep with their immediate family, i.e. their father-in-law's side of family, yet keep in touch with distant relatives and friends. My question is, I'm seeing the same pattern reoccurring with my kids and in-laws' kids, as they seem to be distant, and the same with my husband and his brothers. To make it worse, my mother-in-law discourages her grandkids to shake hands with each other if their genders differ, and I feel this creates an even bigger gap, as our families hardly ever interact with each other. How do I go about this with regards to upholding family ties? I feel distance is created as my mother-in-law is very much controlling and biased towards one son over the others, ignorant to the fact that our family is breaking and the same cycle is being repeated as my father-in-law's with his brothers and nieces and nephews.
Right, with this, unfortunately, right, when it comes to if it's a cycle thing, right, where, for example, let's just say parents have lived along this kind of a life, the children will have learnt what they saw. That's what they know best, in essence. That's naturally how they're going to react, the way that they're being distant from one another. Now what happens is, when these children get married and they have their own children, because that's what they know best, that's the way they behave with one another, then that's how they're going to continue. If, for example, one daughter-in-law now comes into the picture and she doesn't want it like that, that's fine. Obviously, you can maybe control your family perhaps not to be like that. But I'm afraid the others, the others who may be still not on that same page, it's going to be very hard for you to try to make them understand something here. Does that make sense? It's going to be a generational remapping, you can say, where you can then rectify your children to make sure they don't do that when they grow older. And that's the way, hopefully, things are rectified and corrected. Now, that's the reality. That's the way that I'm afraid I've seen that that's what happens. I understand exactly what you're saying in terms of, not talking to extended or even close family members. And then, that's the way it goes down. Obviously, one thing that was mentioned, that the mother-in-law prevents grandchildren from, shaking hands if they're from different gender. That's not entirely wrong, by the way, right? So it's not something that should be discouraged if mother-in-laws doing that, perhaps because of modesty, keeping up the barriers of, sharam and shame and modesty and things, right? So that's fine. That's the way they've been brought up. So they're doing that because of that particular reason. So it's not something which is entirely wrong. So we have to work out where we want and how we want our children to be able to interact with their, immediate relatives and cousins and so on. So what we can do is we can train our children. We can influence our children and make sure that they, for example, make sure we're going to go to the gathering, make sure you do salam. There's going to be your cousins there, sit with them, play with them, share. If they come to our house, then we're going to explain, or share your toys with them, how young they are, depending on how young they are. Then after they've gone, if you saw that your children didn't interact with them as you would have liked to, then you tell your children that, look, this is not how we treat guests. This is not what we taught. When guests comes to our house, next time I want to see better and like this. And you give them an aim, you give them a target that, look, this is what I want you to do. Spend time with them, sit with them, talk to them, maybe play a game with them, like that. You give them ideas. So next time they're going to be better, right? Like that. So you teach them those social skills in that way, to how to interact with their cousins, in essence, right? And also, what I've seen through experience, as long as you keep teaching your children good things, as they grow older and as the other children also grow older, they obviously will have a mind of their own. So they will start to interact with each other, right? It will rectify, and they will start to, like I said, interact, because they will understand that there's no animosity between us. The animosity may have been between our parents or grandparents or whatever. They had a problem with each other, but we don't have problems. So we'll carry on talking, right? So many a times it kind of rectifies, as long as you keep teaching the good things to your children to be able to, like we talked about right now, where the good behavior will take away the bad, right? The bad that is done towards. So you just have to carry on teaching that good behavior, right? But it does take a bit of time, is what I've seen through experience. It's not just a simple thing whereby you talk to them and that's it, it's rectified itself. I'm afraid, because it's a long, it's been years of damage kind of thing, right? And to rectify that, it takes a bit of time. Obviously, what you can perhaps do is, if it's not your direct brothers and sisters that are doing that, it's your in-laws, for example, your husband's, family that are doing this kind of a thing, then sometimes mentioning it to your husband, to be able to mention it to them, if he's able to discuss with his, with his brother or whoever it is, that can work sometimes. But a lot of times, unfortunately, it doesn't work, because he's going to say, if I bring it up, it's going to cause issues, right? It's just going to cause more distancing. It's going to cause, it's going to highlight certain things. So, we'll try our best to do what we can. So when you haven't, take advantage of certain occasions, like, for example, Eid happens, or, a wedding happens, or certain things, take advantage of those occasions and make it such that, okay, invite all the family around, right? And have the kids playing with each other, let them enjoy their time. And then afterwards, and then, they enjoyed their time so much, we should do this more often, right? And then sometimes here and there, let's take them out, take them out to the park, or let's all play together. Let's do, do a family, do a barbecue, these kind of things. And hopefully slowly you can see these kind of things rectifying themselves, inshallah. But it does take a bit of time to try to make them understand and come out of that actually being with one another, and actually it's actually fun, and it's not that bad, because they've always seen that when they got together, it's been fights, it's been arguments, it's been hostility. So because they've seen that, they kind of stay away from each other. And unfortunately, this kind of, you know, it just continues on into their children. But like I said, if we keep good relationship with them, they will start to keep good relationship, and the children will grow old enough to be able to make a decision of their own.
Brilliant. Jazakallah khair, Sab. I think that's, alhamdulillah, all the questions we've had come in. I'm just going to quickly check. Okay. Yes, that's all the questions we've had come in. Is this the question from the same sister? What to say? Anyhow, yeah, that's all the questions. So Jazakallah khairah to everybody for listening so attentively and for sending in your questions. Just a quick heads up that we do have, alhamdulillah, very, very soon, an entire on-demand course coming out on dealing with in-laws, with understanding the principles and the backdrop and the context, and then a lot of practical steps what you can practically do, inshallah, to build this relationship that Mufti Sahib alluded to a number of times. So keep an eye out on that, on our WhatsApp channel, on our Instagram, on the website as well. But until next time, Jazakumullah khairah, and we look forward to seeing you again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.